Play.
Hello there. Welcome to Talking Tennis. The last ball dropped on centre court about half an hour ago. Thank you for bearing with us whilst we just need to sort out when we're going live. Appreciate some of the timings were probably a little bit confusing, but thanks for bearing with us today. Yeah, we're going to go through everything that's kind of happened today, with the results, with Miles, maybe John. We'll see how it goes. But I am going to be steering us through today. Today's results, of which we had a little bit of action. Some matches rained off or delayed, but only a couple. On the grand scheme of things, wasn't as bad as Tuesday, even if there was some rain issues, but still more late finishes at Wimbledon. It's becoming the norm. Okay, so if you bear with us, we will go and get underway. So hello to you in the chat. What I'm going to do is I'm going to let you know what happened in case you missed it, or a reminder of what's happening really, and hopefully you'll be able if you want to say in the comments, maybe share your thoughts on those matches. We can on the matches that have been happening, the results as I'm going through them, then I can react a little bit during the end. So if you're watching us now, get in the comments. I know some of you are probably coming back in a bit. Maybe you were expected to go live at 11. But those of you who are here, just let me know what you think. Should be good fun. So let's start off, I think, with the women's draw today, because even though there was plenty of action on the men's side, the women's side was what closed play today, and play was closed by the defending champion, Aryna Rybakina, getting through in straight sets against Katie Boulter, who probably didn't have enough to trouble Rybakina, but it has to be said Rybakina was imperious in that. We'll talk a little bit about thoughts on exactly what happened there in a bit. But yeah, Rybakina threw 6-1, 6-1 against Katie Boulter. I think I am sharing the men's results. That is, that's my mistake. I do apologize. Next result was obviously the first women's touch on centre court. Before that, it was Ons Jabeur beating Bianca Andreescu in 3 sets in what was quite a competitive match, really. Hello, Kirit. Hello, Aryna. Kirit, I'm going to come back to your comment because I'm still going to run through the men's. But yeah, Ons Jabeur in a 3-set battle, really was a battle with Bianca Andreescu. Over on court 2, number 1 even, Aryna Sabalenka beat Anna Blinkova. Very straightforward scoreline, but maybe it wasn't as straightforward as the score looked. And we'll definitely talk a little bit about that with our co-hosts later. Also have to look at Petra Kvitova, also threw in straight sets. Again, not that straightforward a match for Petra Kvitova, but she is also through to the second week of Wimbledon for the first time since 2017, which is incredible to think. Beatrice Haddad-Maia gets the second week of a major for the second major running, having not made it that far before. Really, really good, really impressive performance against Sorana Castella. Hi, Jane. Lovely to see you. It's been a while since you've been in the chat, so it's nice to see you today. And Ashley as well. Oh gosh, yeah, everyone's here. This is brilliant. Hopefully, Ghost will be back soon. Also, other results on the women's side. Madison Keys seems to get through quite straightforwardly against Marta Kostyuk. And the final match, or rather what ended up being the first result of the day was Ekaterina Alexandrova getting through against Dama Galfi, who, fairly straightforwardly. And not only was she the first result of the day, this was Ekaterina Alexandrova's first appearance in a round 4. As in, she's won today. First time she's won a round 3 match in her career, despite getting to this stage several times. She's finally made the second week of a major for the first time in her career. Loving some, have got some Beatrice Haddad-Maia love, which is brilliant. She's a fun player, and she's definitely hoping to make her way back into the top 10 and make up for what was a disappointing Wimbledon last year, given her impressive grass court build-up. If anything, this year's kind of swapped around, given it wasn't an impressive grass court build-up, but she's in the second week of Wimbledon. Strange how it goes. Rebecca is the best player in the WTA roster. Is that in Nederland? Is that on grass? Or is that in general? Because I'm very interested to see that point, because I would definitely, so far on kind of performances this week, I'd agree with you at Wimbledon. Max, it's good to have you here, as always. Yeah, talking tennis families together. This is lovely. We've got Nerlan, we've got Kirit, we've got Ashley, we've got Jane, we've got Elena. In the chat, we've Ghost was here earlier. He'll be back. Tennis Twit will be back. This is great. It's loving seeing everyone here. So very, very excited to see what happens next with that. Okay, so those are your results. Just to recap, your winners today are Ons Jabeur, Elena Rybakina, Aryna Sabalenka, Petra Kvitova, Beatrice Haddad-Maia, Madison Keys, and Ekaterina Alexandrova. One thing I will say, we did have a round 3 match that wasn't completed. It didn't even get started. And that was Mira Andreeva against Anastasia Potapova. It's the last women's 3rd round match to go. They will play tomorrow on court 3. That was I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch, to see whether Andreeva can overcome her compatriot and make her first round 4 of a major. Very excited to see what happens. But let's talk about the men's draw now. So just to get that up for you. Walking in the park for Rybakina. Sorry for the Brits, Nick. Don't feel too sorry for us. I mean, we win a lot of other sports, he says, looking at the cricket results. But anyway, moving swiftly on. It's the Brits at Wimbledon. It's a standard story. Hopefully we will see what will happen. So we're going to look at, men's draw now, and see how at the men's results now. So first of all, we're going to have, on centre court, opening up on centre court, Carlos Alcaraz ended up going 4 sets with Nicolas Jarry in what was a tougher than expected battle for Alcaraz. Or maybe not. Maybe we all thought Jarry was going to get through. Maybe it wasn't as tough as it could have been. It could have gone 5. But Alcaraz managed to get the job done. Someone else got the job done. Another contender, Daniel Medvedev. Daniel Medvedev dropped the first set against Marton Fucsovics, but then took control of the match and seemed to work it out. Also threw in for another title contender. Kirit mentioned this earlier. Matteo Berrettini is through straight sets again. Has only dropped 1 set so far. That was to Sonego in his opening round, but he's routined Alex de Minaur and was comfortable. Well, not that comfortable, but had the edge over Alexander Zverev, despite 2 of those sets going to tie breaks. So very interesting. I can't find the comment from earlier before, but Kirit saying Berrettini one to watch. Stefanos Tsitsipas is through as well. Straight sets against Laszlo Jarry, but not as straightforward as that scoreline presents. That could be an interesting one. And as Max has pointed out, another result, he will face the winner on court 18 in 3 tiebreak sets. Chris Eubanks continues his magnificent run on grass. And definitely since Miami has proven himself to be very much an established top 50 player. He's already in the top 40. Maybe he'll get himself seeded for the US Open. I think he's getting himself in a very good position for that. And if he gets himself seeded there, he's going to get himself some very fortunate court placings as well as draws. Ashley hoping for a Medvedev versus Tsitsipas dance-off. We could see that in the quarterfinals. Could happen. So that will be fascinating. But other results to bring you. Holger Rune fended off a scare from Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina in 5 sets, possibly the match of the day. There could very well have been an upset on court number 3 had there not been some questionable tactics from Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina. Kirit, are you putting on $1 on Eubanks to win Wimbledon? Because that's brave. I think Djokovic might have something to say about that. I don't actually think it would be that crazy for him to be in the final, but Djokovic might have something to say. The other 5-set match was Jiri Lehečka taking out Tommy Paul in 5. So as much as Max is talking about not a great day for the Brits, it's definitely been a mixed day for the Americans, because although Eubanks won, Tommy Paul lost. Jiri Lehečka continuing his impressive season in the majors to make the 4th round of Wimbledon and emulate the success on grass that his coach Thomas Berdych had. Whether he'll get to a Wimbledon final or not, who knows? But this is definitely the half of the draw that's focusing on who will be the one to face Novak Djokovic in the final. Elena's saying it's very impressive serve from Eubanks. I would hope that commentating improves things. I'm hoping that commentating improves my game, but I'm not a professional. So it's probably even more impressive, to be honest. So, yeah, great job from Chris. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. I think Tennis Channel have got a great resource there for someone who's on the tour working for them. We're probably going to be discussing that underarm serve. And should be interesting. Max Lehečka got to the Australian Open quarters. Should be good. Eubanks versus Tsitsipas is going to be the 4th round match, with the winner of that playing either Daniel Medvedev or Jiri Lehečka. There was one incomplete match, actually, that we need to address, which is that Grigor Dimitrov was leading Francis Tiafoe by 2 sets to love and 1-2 in the 3rd before getting rained off. I believe it's going with serve. Dimitrov, I think you would expect to be more comfortable on grass, but we'll see if Tiafoe can mount a comeback when they resume tomorrow as the 2nd match on court 2. But yeah, that was an unfinished one from today, which means obviously they'll have to play tomorrow and then come back on Monday with the winner of that match having to play Holger Rune, who probably not mind too much of his opponents, also maybe having a little bit of time to recover, less time to recover than he does, as he's had a 5-setter. A lot of chat here about Medvedev and Tsitsipas being a potentially entertaining match. I agree, because that's a matchup on grass that we've never had. We've seen them on clay. We've seen them on hard. We've kind of expected Medvedev to dominate the hard courts and Tsitsipas to dominate on the clay. Both players have turned around on the opposite surface. Tsitsipas getting a few wins on hard. Medvedev beating Tsitsipas on clay this year. So on grass, that's going to be interesting, because whilst Medvedev is a tough player on grass, Tsitsipas has improved on the surface. I'd be very interested to see what's happening. You think that Stefanos will lose to the Eubanks and have to deal with Medvedev? That's an interesting theory. I think the drive to win will probably be stronger, and who knows? He may not be playing Medvedev because this is kind of ruling out Lehechka from doing something special. Lehechka could pull something crazy off. He's playing very well at the minute, despite the 5-setter. Nurlan, Medvedev will win Wimbledon. Not that crazy. I would have him as my third favorite. I know I usually do a WTA power ranking, but my men's is it would be Djokovic 1, Alcaraz 2, Medvedev 3, Sinner 4, Rune 5. And actually, they're all still in. And I'd say actually there's a good chance that although Djokovic is the favourite, Alcaraz second, I'd say Medvedev is the clear third, and then Sinner fourth because the draw, Rune fifth because he kind of still is in the mix, but maybe has a little bit of learn to learn grass, and we know how he has recovery issues. His recovery issues. He's still not fully developed physically. That's going to be an interesting one. Ashley going, if Sinner doesn't make the semis with his draw, she's going to revolt. It does seem to be an open goal for sure. By the way, I would say, I was going back to my earlier point, I'd say the top 5 most likely to win are in the ATP side. On the WTA side, we've still got 5, I'd say, a decent top 5 most likely to win. Rybakina, Sabalenka, Swiatek, Jabeur, and Kvitova. Maybe Madison Keys throwing her name in the mix, given that she's unbeaten on grass so far this year and she's in the 4th round quite comfortably. She's throwing her way. She's throwing in there. Challenge to Carlos, yes. On grass, I think we saw what happened with Berrettini and Alcaraz at the Australian Open in 2021. That went 5. I think Matteo Berrettini's grass court game is going to be very, very good. It is very good. Is probably second best to Djokovic maybe right now. But Alcaraz can upset that because he's the Queen's Club champion. In many ways, I'd be curious to see what would happen if these two met in the final at Queen's Club, given they're now both unbeaten, at least for now, at the mini Wimbledon. So I would back Berrettini to win at least a set. I think he'll win 2. I think that match is going 5. Oh gosh, yes. I don't want to have any kind of beef with Serenko, but if beef with Serenko or anything like that, I actually don't know very much about her in terms of a person. Know her results, but hey, credit to her for consistently reaching 4th rounds. Seeing some chat between Kirit and Elena about Berrettini being an unknown. And I thought Berrettini was going to lose round 1. I thought he was going to lose round 1 to Sonego. And the reason why I thought that was because I didn't think he was fully recovered from his injury, judging by how he did in Stuttgart. Clearly, the extra couple of weeks helped. Back on it, fully fit. And a fully fit Matteo Berrettini at Wimbledon is a threat to pretty much everyone, maybe even Novak Djokovic. So, although I did list 5 players and I listed Keys as a dark horse on the women's side, I think Berrettini has to be the dark horse. Now. So we'll have to see what's going on. Matteo Berrettini fired 2 years ago, as Kirit pointed out, and to be honest, I think if Novak Djokovic wasn't in the draw, he would be a Wimbledon champion and the favourite at Wimbledon almost every year, were it not for Novak Djokovic. Again, the question is, does Carlos Alcaraz superimpose himself? Tennis Twit believes in Chris Eubanks. In Chris Eubanks. I think he's very impressive. It's the first time I've really had a chance to watch his game. But I love the single-hander and the power he can drive through it. Like it's not a tentative single-hander in any way. He's got something behind it, and it works really, really well on grass. Very interested to see what he can do against Tsitsipas. He might. I think he does have a decent chance of pulling off an upset, but we'll have to wait and see. Actually, both he and Tsitsipas have something in common in that they are the most recent Mallorca champions. Tennis Twit saying too early for Carlos to win Wimbledon. I don't think he's second favourite. Who would you put as second favourite? Berrettini, not a bad choice. Medvedev, not a bad choice. But I think the only reason that it's too early for Carlos to win Wimbledon is Novak Djokovic, to be honest. I think in terms of matchups, his game works on the surface pretty well. That Jarry match, we'll talk about probably a little bit when we get our co-host on. I think he handled the situation pretty well. Jarry was throwing everything at him he could. Carlos Alcaraz on grass, I think, is a burgeoning force. And I still think he's likely to make it. I am fascinated to see what that Berrettini match does, though, because I think Berrettini's his biggest threat to stop him from reaching the final, bigger than Medvedev. Shrihari won't like me saying that, but that's a good point about Sinner being a better grass court than Alcaraz, but don't trust his fitness. At the minute, his fitness has not been tested. He's got through pretty straightforwardly. Obviously, he's in action tomorrow. Is Jannik Sinner? It's the second match on court 1, and he has a very, very good opportunity against Daniel Galan, who, has a reputation for upsetting top players because he beat Stefanos Tsitsipas at the US Open. But I think Sinner might be in a good position there. And if you want a bit of an insight into what I think will happen next, I think Sinner would then be the favourite against Safiullin or Shapovalov in the quarterfinal. Safiullin, because obviously it's unknown for him to get that far, and Shapovalov, because we know how volatile Shapovalov is. I mean, he very nearly lost to Liam Brody, and no disrespect to Liam Brody, because you don't push top 10, top 20, top 30 players the way he does without being very, very good. But a lot of the reason why I think Shapovalov kind of let him into the match, and that was shown by kind of the comeback that he had and the stretches of play that he had. As for Matteo Berrettini, I'm seeing some questions with him. There was I think he's still suffering from an abdominal injury. That was what he was down with. I think there was also some kind of leg injury as well. I'm not 100% sure. It's an oblique muscle. An oblique muscle, which hopefully someone can tell me where they are. Okay, yes, it's the upper body again. So Berrettini does seem to have that issue. He does seem to get issues with his kind of upper body and the abdominal area, maybe. So that's why we're talking about that. Maybe it's kind of the pressure he puts through his forehand that causes the problem. I don't know. Got a question here about actually we'll go back to that with Alcaraz being 12-3 on grass, which is kind of crazy. I think that very this early in his career, that's a good sign. And I always thought he would be good on grass. I was a little surprised he lost to Sinner, but Sinner kind of elevated his game on grass after struggling for so long. I think Sean, we're right to see that Alcaraz is probably going to be very much a force at Wimbledon. Interesting to see the United Cup as a exhibition. Obviously, I don't know if the players see it as the same thing, because obviously it is worth ranking points overall. And I don't know if you realise that. I think it's worth about the same as a 500. for a top player. Yeah, I think he tore it a long time ago. He just wasn't quite ready in Stuttgart, wasn't fully healed, but it is now. I think that was more the problem. Tennis twit. Wild card on the women's side, Andreeva, very good. Yes, I would agree. I'm not sure her game's fully enough to develop to win the tournament. But hey, she's got a fantastic opportunity ahead. Potapova's not going to be any slouch. She's a semi-finalist in Birmingham. I think she's actually the only one from the 4 semi-finalists in Birmingham still in the draw. But she's very good on grass, has a lot of power, and took a lot of confidence out of Birmingham, despite losing to Elena Ostapenko. So that's something to be aware of, I think. It's pretty stacked. She's got to get through Potapova. That's going to be a tough challenge. And then looking at who she would have to play in round 4, it would be Keys. And I think with the way Keys is playing, that might be too much of a challenge. Is Alcaraz the most overrated player since Monica Seles? I never watched Monica Seles play, but I definitely don't think she was underrated. And if you actually watch Carlos Alcaraz, I think he's an absolute genius when it comes to shot making. So the answer is no. But I can't really share your judgment on Monica Seles. I'm going to bring in our guest, if he's ready. So please welcome Miles David.
Hey.
Hey, Miles. Oh, I'm so glad you're on. I had a lot of fun with you 2 days ago.
We had a lot of fun. I'm glad to do it again. Thanks for having me on the show. Thanks, John, for providing the space. And yeah, hey, everybody. Ready to talk some tennis.
Yeah. Miles, very much a last-minute guest. I think it's safe to say, if we're being honest.
I was too busy going back to the fragrance store to try to find a fragrance that reminded me of this time of Carlos Alcaraz, maybe.
Okay, I need to go into. We need to dig into this a little bit. I'm sorry. I know we're here to talk about tennis, but what is it about a certain tennis player that inspires your choice of cologne?
I made that up. There's no choice of that, but it's a running joke from yesterday because, the day before that, because I took a break from watching tennis to go to a fragrance store, and by the time I came back, I realized that Taylor Fritz had lost his match up 2-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the time it was
also Tiafoe as well. I think you were watching Tiafoe.
Yeah, I was watching Tiafoe, and he was pretty comfortable, and I went to go get a fragrance. I don't think Tiafoe inspired that, but I feel like now that the wheels are turning, I feel like Tiafoe should have a fragrance.
Hey, look, if Francis Tiafoe's agent is watching,
yes, I gave him an idea. I guess you need like 4%. 4%.
Yeah, because I think Miles would buy for anything that Francis Tiafoe would sell him.
Yeah, maybe.
I mean, let's face it, he's a pretty persuasive guy.
Not so much so today, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So we've been talking a lot more around the men's draw, actually. So why don't we chat around the men's draw now? So I'm going to put the results up on screen. Although, having said that, whilst we're talking about Tiafoe, let's address the fact that he obviously didn't win. Like, his match isn't done yet.
We're in limbo.
He's 2 sets to love down against Grigor Dimitrov fairly comfortably. I have not seen any of that match. I didn't know it had started. I was focused on the big courts. I know with my crazy setup, I should have worked it out, but I think with the rain and everything, I wasn't sure. And I did also have to pop out for a bit. So did you see any of that match? Was it Grigor Dimitrov engaging
unfortunately
grass court mode, or was Francis struggling?
Unfortunately, I watched a good portion of that match and was not impressed with the overall energy in the match, which is something that I usually take from a Tiafoe match, whether it's Tiafoe himself or what Tiafoe brings to a match and kind of brings out of the other player. But none of that was really happening in the match, and I left very, even though the match isn't over with, I was pretty overwhelmed for underwhelmed for part one of the Dimitrov and Tiafoe match. And it was mostly because Tiafoe didn't really come out with it didn't seem like he came out with a game plan or with an added intensity to say this was a third round slam match. And I feel like I was seeing a little bit of the older Tiafoe that wasn't really the 2023 top 10 player that he is now. So yeah, all that to say, I unfortunately I didn't watch the first 4 games, but everything else I watched until they turned off the match, or suspended the match, I should say. And I wasn't very impressed.
Do you think that's because it was on a slightly smaller court? We know Tiafoe tends to bring it more on show courts, but then he's been on like court 18 for 2 days, and then he's like is it court 2 he's on?
It was on court 2 playing Dimitrov, which every time they panned out, there were a bunch of people in the seats. Like, I don't think that it was a packed house, so not sure why he didn't really use that court's energy. It felt like it felt like a bad day, honestly. So I really wasn't too upset when they called it off and eventually decided to bring it back tomorrow because it was too late to finish it. I hope that does something to him, because if it doesn't, it's probably going to be the worst third round match of all of them on the men's side. That's how underwhelmed and disappointing it was.
And it wasn't. And do you know what? We've actually been spoiled for men's matches today, in terms of how good they've been. How much hope are you holding out for a Tiafoe comeback?
I don't know if I've ever, as a Tiafoe fan, I don't know if I've ever been in this predicament where he has the opportunity down 2 sets to love to recalibrate some things on an entirely different day. I hope him and his team use that to his advantage, because although I'm saying this from a lens of somebody who roots for Tiafoe, Dimitrov wasn't playing amazing tennis, and Tiafoe wasn't asking him to either. Dimitrov was keeping a high first serve percentage in, and if he keeps that up, along with like his ability to disrupt on the one-handed slice backhand, it could just be a bad matchup for Tiafoe. So I'm encouraged, but also I don't have really a lot to go off of that should be encouraging in Act 1 of that match, because Tiafoe was pretty poor.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to when it resumes tomorrow.
Sorry, I ended on a terrible note.
No, because we're starting this. We're starting the day.
We're building up. We're
building up. Okay, let's go through. Kirit's saying it's going to be tough to get 3 straight sets against Grigor Dimitrov. For most players, probably. But Tiafoe is someone who could.
He could. The last time they played, actually. It had been a while. 2019 Australian Open 4th round. Tiafoe won, and it was like a mix of 7-5 and 7-6 sets. So that's why I was so surprised by 2 6-2 sets, because it was so underwhelming.
Yeah. All right. Well, we've been live for nearly an hour. Most of it, a lot of it was me reading off results. But let's talk about probably one of the headline matches on the ticket, which is the only men's match on centre court today: Carlos Alcaraz against Nicolas Jarry.
It lived up to it.
Yeah. I caught that match. I was impressed by how much Jarry threw at Alcaraz and how much he was able to disrupt and how much he was able to cling on to his serve as much as he did. But I just got the sense that Alcaraz had a little bit more in there to finish the job. I did think it was going 5, and I was very impressed with Alcaraz coming back to stop it from going 5. Like, Jarry against any other player should have won set 2 more comfortably, and should have won set 4. But it's Carlos Alcaraz and pulling off something special in a way that I'm not sure I've seen from him before. It's kind of pulling off a match that should have been a lot closer that I would expect an old Big Four to do.
Yeah, those are all great points, Nick. I feel like watching that, I was able to really see his levels of maturity. And for that, I appreciated it. not that he was immature, but I felt like there were certain points in that match, and obviously by the drop of that second set, it kind of indicates that. But there were points where he kind of really could have allowed Jarry to overwhelm him in terms of momentum in the match, because Jarry just kind of wouldn't let up. And I was super impressed by that, because I don't think I've ever seen him play on anything but a clay surface. So to see him kind of be closer to the baseline and really assert himself in that match against somebody like Alcaraz, who is so assertive, was really entertaining. But I could tell that there was a very distinct moment, especially and most evident in the fourth set, where he kind of looked at his box and was like, no, I'm the world number one. He's playing well, but I can play better. And he just upped it, that extra 10%. And that was impressive. Jarry didn't close out some really critical opportunities and points where he really could have put away shots for himself. So that was disappointing, I guess, from Nicolas Jarry fan standpoint or point of view. But I agree with what you said. That was an impressive match for more than just actually going to the net and shaking hands as the winner. So I enjoyed that one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and Alcaraz, he did what he did, and what was impressive, what Jarry was doing was like Alcaraz's speed normally helps him pick up some of these shots, and Jarry was able to put them away. Great point from Anastasia. He is not dropping too many sets. I mean, I think Jarry deserved a set today from how he was playing, and that's nothing against Alcaraz for dropping it at all. So I think that he's definitely living up to his top seed billing. I think we should probably talk about, though, because I've been chatting a little bit with the chat. Oh, Ghost did not like the Jarry match at all. Clearly,
Ghost is really funny.
I enjoyed it.
It was very. This is maybe an overused term, but it was very athletic tennis and heavy. Like, I feel like Carlos Alcaraz can hit a very fast and heavy ball, and Nicolas Jarry surprised me on a quicker surface, quicker adjacent, because it's not the lightning quick grass we try to make it to be these days. But his ball really did a pretty good job of hanging with Alcaraz, and he's such a better server than I thought he was. Like, and if he can keep serving that way, I don't see why he can't keep his ranking up around in that top 30 range. So I was impressed by both of them.
And Jarry's risen through the rankings very, very quickly. So he's probably still going to be seeded by the time the French Open comes around next year. And definitely on clay, he's going to build that up.
Only if he defends his Geneva title and the Santiago title.
Yeah, but Santiago shouldn't be too bad, because that's a home turf.
Geneva. He shouldn't miss that one. But if he's playing extra well, he shouldn't have a reason to play Geneva on paper, because that's the week before Roland Garros. And typically the players that have the best odds don't play the week before a major, I guess.
Well, if he gets a semi-final at a Masters 1000, then that should actually give him more points. So he'll be fine.
We can circle back to this when it happens.
let's pick up Nicolas Jarry chat when we come around to clay in 2024. Let's see how he does in the clay court season that Casper Ruud usually vultures post Wimbledon.
Oh, that's my least favorite part of tennis, but we move forward.
That's a very odd thing. Let's talk about Carlos Alcaraz's opponent in round 4, because it's going to be Matteo Berrettini, who is back.
Why does everybody keep doing that? They keep saying that he's back, and I'm like, I don't want to be like the person that's bringing the energy of the room down, because I'm really happy that he's getting these wins. But
you don't want to be that, Miles, but you might be.
I might, because I've been here before as a Berrettini fan, where it feels like we're on the precipice of something big, and sometimes we actually accomplish that big thing, like winning a grass court title or getting to the final of a major. But I feel like there's not that much distance between wonderful moments of high and also low moments of despair with Matteo Berrettini. So I'm just taking it one match at a time. But the matches we have gone through at Wimbledon so far have impressed me, especially most today against Zverev. I miss Berrettini.
I can see why. Let's put this into perspective. Matteo being back in the context of where we thought he was at compared to where he's actually at. Because Matteo Berrettini, I thought going into this wouldn't even win a match. I thought he would be too rusty, that he wasn't physically ready. Proved us wrong against Sonego, and then was ruthless against de Minaur. I do think de Minaur did a good job of making sets semi-competitive and getting to juice games a lot. But yeah, the Zverev match, I caught the end of it just to see what happened. And still saying Berrettini's serve on fire, the forehand's on fire. He's actually slicing with it sometimes. He's super confident right now. He's hitting through his backhand at points. And even when he's not, that slice is proving really, really effective. Didn't come into the net a lot against Zverev, but he did against de Minaur. But yeah, watching that match, yes, Zverev was throwing everything he had against Berrettini, and it wasn't enough. Berrettini on grass had that edge.
He overwhelmed him, which I appreciated, because I think people underestimate how Mateo's game can overwhelm people on a court, especially a quicker court, because of the way how he takes his forehand. Obviously, the way his serve kind of just moves through the court, and it's just so thunderous. I miss that, especially like we saw it on match point, the way he can just throw down a serve, especially in very crucial parts of a match. I enjoyed that. And you said something about him being confident. I slightly disagree with that, only because I feel like we've seen Berrettini be confident, and it didn't necessarily look the same to me as he did today in his match. I think he actually is playing and swinging a lot more freely because there was no real expectation of what his tournament was going to look like or be, or what level he was going to show up as. So he's just out there kind of playing tennis. I think I caught a quote that said he was crying in bed for so long and just kind of like being away from the sport, that playing 5 days in a row, or however many days in a row he's played now, is like nothing to him. It sounds fun. And that's the idea I get, is that he's just playing tennis, and his natural way he plays tennis is even more so impactful on a grass court, especially against Zverev, who doesn't necessarily love the court. So it's in a perfect harmony of right surface, right tournament, right time in his career for him to just swing freely, and we're getting the hammer back because of it.
Yeah,
kind of.
Absolutely, and it's great to hear that he's feeling better than he was, and not necessarily struggling, which is brilliant. Tennis Twit has a controversial prediction that he's going to beat Alcaraz in 4. I think that match is going to go 5. I think Berrettini on grass against Alcaraz, who's still developing on grass, and is going to be close. And they've obviously had a close one before at the Australian Open 2 years ago. No, 2022, not 2021. It's 2022, so a year and a half ago. I think it's going to be a good match. I rate Berrettini's grass court game as being a match for which anyone on the surface, apart from Novak Djokovic. How do you think Alcaraz Berrettini is going to be competitive?
Yeah, I hope it is. I really do. If it's anything like the last Grand Slam match they played against each other that I remember, the Australian Open in 2022, and that wasn't even Alcaraz as a Grand Slam champion and world number 1. That was thrilling and interesting and had ebbs and flows to it. And yeah, replay that for me just on grass, and I'd be a happy camper.
A lot of people talking about the Berrettini backhand in the chat. Do you have any observations about it? Is it better?
I feel like it's such an easy place to critique, honestly. And it's not a bad place to critique, because his backhand could be better, but it's such an easy place to critique because it's so obvious. And the thing I love about him is the fact that he's able to do everything outside of that way better than average, to be a way better than average tennis player. Mm-hmm. He covers it up very well. And then the benefit he has on this particular surface is that the thing he does well to cover that, the lack of really depth and spin on that two-hander, is a really, really low slice, and he can rally with the slice, and I enjoyed watching how all of that kind of deterred Zverev from playing his game. Sometimes that same backhand slice was way too low to his forehand, and with the grips that the players play with nowadays, sometimes that just makes it hard to hit up on the ball and spin it over and back into the other side of the court. So, like, I do agree that sometimes his backhand holds him back, and there's some moments where it's like, damn, that point would have been different if he had a really solid two-handed backhand. But everything else is solid when it's free flowing, and I enjoy watching it.
Yeah, and I will rate his slice. His slice is pretty effective at defending, disrupting, doing what a slice should on grass. So I don't have much concerns there. So it might be a weakness that Alcaraz can pick up on, but let's see how good he's exploiting it. I think we're in for a really tasty battle, and maybe I would imagine that's going to be the last match on Centre on Monday.
Sign me up. If it's prime time in London, I'd be there for it. Maybe not in the queue, but I'd be there.
I mean, to be honest, Miles, if you tried to queue for centre court tickets, you need to camp overnight.
That's definitely not going to be my forte.
They only sell 500 centre court tickets in the queue.
They only sell how many?
500.
And how many people roughly go to get into that queue?
About, well, it depends on the day. On a busy day, 12,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it gets to about 1,000 by 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So
Wimbledon's in the Stone Ages when it comes to that, just a little bit, but that's just my personal opinion. Don't throw rocks at me. I know it's in the Stone Age.
I know I think it tends to be a nationality thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I've been looking into, but essentially I actually quite like the queuing system. I think they could make more show court tickets available through it. But their rationale behind it, more maybe for the ballot, getting tickets through the ballot, is that they want as many different people coming through the gates to get into Wimbledon, rather than having the same people buying tickets every day.
I see that.
It's and I think the best way to achieve that is to keep the old ways.
Sorry, Ghosty's really funny.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I mean, I don't think it's a synonym. I just don't think I'm a big guy, guys. Like, I am a whole lot of man, and I don't think there's a whole lot of tent on this earth big enough for me to feel spacious and sleep somewhere overnight, let alone like on the ground. So I think it is like a cultural thing. But then again, while you were saying that, I was thinking about how people look at the US Open, which I've been to a couple times. And I love the fact that the US Open has an atmosphere of like hanging free and pretty much everybody being inebriated and drunk, whether they love tennis or they don't. And some people probably would be like, oh my God, why is everybody drunk here? It's just a cultural thing.
Yeah, very different atmosphere at Wimbledon. Everyone's going to Wimbledon to have a nice day out, which is generally what it's for. One of the things I love about the queue, so basically people asking how the queue works is it's literally how it says on the tin. There are tickets that you can buy at the gate. You queue up for them. Get in a line, essentially. Is the American term. And that's how it works. And it's really nice, actually, because when I'm in the queue, I'm chatting with the people in front or the people behind about tennis and why we're all here, and like it's basically a tennis festival.
It's like a live Twitter.
Yeah, but everyone's nice to each other because you can't hide behind anonymity. So I queued on Monday, and I was in front of people who'd been coming for about 20 years, and got tickets through their tennis club, usually, or had done in the past, and basically were. One guy was basically going, "Oh, I miss the days of serve and volley, and I find long rallies boring," which is actually quite common for older British fans.
I can see that. I mean, it's common in my household too, so I get it.
Whereas the people in front of me were actually from Charleston and had actually regularly attended the Charleston tournament. And so we were talking about, actually, I've heard Charleston's a really good place to visit. So, like, apparently they went pretty much every day this year, and were saying, "Oh yeah, definitely check it out." I think this was their first time coming to Wimbledon since having a kid, so they brought the kid, who was very patient, having sat in a queue from 6:30 a.m. to get in.
very sentimental right before going into like a really large tennis tournament, and it is a sentimental. I can see how it can be a sentimental experience because you are meeting people, and meeting people is like part of the course for having a wonderful human experience doing pretty much anything, right? But I think it's the horror stories and like the amount of time I've heard, and the fact that in order to get like the quote unquote good tickets, people are camping out, and I feel like all of that detracts from the.
I would say if that puts you off, I don't blame you. Like it would put my dad off. Although my dad has a phrase that always makes me laugh. He considers any accommodation less than 3 stars camping. He's probably watching this back and going, Nick, why did you say that? Oh well. But I would say
it's okay.
It's if it doesn't appeal to you, it's quite energy sapping. I always find it worthwhile at the end of it. At the end of it, but yeah, I mean, it's not the only way you can get obviously centre court tickets because it's a minority. You get those through the ballot, international or national. If you're part of a tennis club in the UK, you get advance notice of it. It's kind of part of a way of kind of growing the game. But yeah,
really, is that how they grow the game with the queue, or that's how they
like tickets, like tickets through a ballot, not the ballot. So I'm not talking about the queue; we're talking about the ballot.
That's an interesting way to grow the game.
I remember being part of a tennis club about 10 years ago. And we're like, "Who's getting the Wimbledon ticket?" And we just drew it out a hat.
Instead of Wimbledon just inviting everybody.
Well, in theory, it's. I think everybody's invited, but there's 42,000 spaces.
Like on the ground, you mean, or in a specific?
Total, yeah, across the entire Wimbledon ground.
Oh, wow.
So,
well, one day I'm going to be in the 42,000, and I hope to have like a really great review of my experience.
I would say that if you're queuing for a regular grounds pass, you don't need to queue that early. Like you could get there around 8 a.m., maybe even before 9, and you'd probably get in by 12.
I think the I don't want to like derail the show and talk about this for too much. Sorry, but I'm looking at the comments and people are saying like the price of the ticket for queuing is around $30 or $40, whereas and you get the same experience as you would for like $150 at the US Open, which is a ground pass. You can just buy it online. So you're paying incredibly high prices for convenience and the easy access of it all. Whereas for that, I guess you're suffering to be able to save money in some way for very similar experiences. So yeah.
We've talked about tickets before on a show. I remember you and I talking about it, and I am the kind of person who is willing to forego convenience for the sake of cheapness.
I get
that. In general, not just in tennis. There's a reason why I stay so thin, but
maybe that's why I stay so healthy. How about that?
Yeah. But yeah, and I think someone was asking about how much men's finals tickets are. I believe they're £250, if I've remembered that right. But you can only get those through the ballot. That none of those are available in the queue. I don't believe you can only get those through ballot. If you're queuing to watch on the big screen, which costs £8. So yeah, that's how it works. But yeah, we have derailed this a little bit.
Sorry, I'm way too good at that.
It's an Ash. I don't know how much. That depends who's playing, right, Miles? Because I think that's the other difference is that Wimbledon prices are fixed no matter who's playing. US Open prices can fluctuate depending on who is playing.
Yeah, if we ever got like a Roger versus Rafa final in 2023, they'd be astronomical because everybody misses them now that they can't get those tickets.
Yeah. So let's go back to the matches. Let's talk about. So we talked about Alcaraz, we talked about Berrettini, we talked about Tiafoe, Daniel Medvedev through after going from a set down against Martin Fucsovics. Bit of a slow start, but once they got going, the Fucsovics forehand just broke down a lot. And Medvedev, all he needs to do is keep extending the rally, and Fucsovics would make an error. It's a standard Medvedev win, to be honest.
Can you still hear me, by the way?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. I thought I touched something. I didn't want it to mess up the flow of our conversation.
That's fair. Yeah. Thoughts on the Medvedev win? I mean, I've just said my observations.
If I can be super honest, that wasn't one of the ones I circled and looked forward to, just because I felt like I knew what the rallies would look like. And then also, when I did try to get into the match, I was unfortunately met with Brad Gilbert commentary, and he consistently said how ripped Martin Fucsovics was for like an hour, and that just it wasn't entertaining. So I forgot what match I went to besides the Medvedev one. Who else was on at that time? Either way, I didn't walk away with.
It was raining, so it would have been Alcaraz Jarry.
Okay, well maybe that's why I was so in tune with the Alcaraz match, because Medvedev and the commentary over there wasn't my steez. But I don't feel like I know anything more or anything differently than I do about Medvedev and Fucsovics after that match. I'm just happy that Medvedev is in the tournament and playing well and doing what he does, making things difficult and covering the court like a octopus underwater.
I think octopus underwater is better than playing like an octopus on dry land.
Yes,
because you're probably barely moving. I can see why. Again, we talked about, maybe not a fan of longer rallies, and Medvedev's entire game is about just playing extended rallies. And it's not for everyone. I support Medvedev more for his personality than his game. But I don't want to say too much else, because I think Shrihari might kick me off the Popcorn Tennis podcast. Is
Shrihari more of a Medvedev fan or more of a Djokovic fan?
He's kind of both equally. So you can very much tell style of game he likes.
Okay, fair.
Although I think he picked Djokovic as a favorite because he liked the underdog against Roger versus Rafa. From the late 2000s trend.
Makes sense.
Yeah. Clearly, as Matthew has said, props to Martin Fucsovics for even though he lost, at least he stayed in shape.
Yeah. It's almost the thing that I wouldn't say annoys me, but the thing that's so interesting about that is that, yes, like not every tennis player looks that way, but if you put them all under the umbrella, all of them are in shape because they're athletic professional tennis players. So you telling me every 5 minutes, oh my God, look how jacked he is. It's like, I'm watching professional athletes, like, duh.
Yeah, it's almost a similar conversation we have about Maria Sakkari.
Like this is their job. This is like, they're supposed to be in way better shape than you and I could ever be.
Yeah, I think maybe it's unusual because with tennis athletes, like they don't, the physicality side of it isn't always as obvious. Mm-hmm. They do kind of look like normal people, maybe a bit thicker built and a bit taller, but maybe gives you some hope that you could be a tennis player. Whereas maybe if
you're... we can still be tennis players. We just can't be professional tennis players.
That is true. That is true.
It's a game for everybody.
So yeah, it is a game for everybody. Although I will say that I'm still trying to get back into my game. I have played 4 matches on my competitive return to tennis and won 2 games total across all of them.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's not a great comeback.
There might have been worse. There might have been worse on the professional tour. I think.
I wouldn't have won points.
I was going to name some names, but I'm not going to do it.
We're not here. Like, we'll find some shade to throw. People are already mentioning Licia Sorenko in the chat, and I'm like, I am already regretting the reputation I have.
I didn't think you said anything out of the ordinary. I mean, when tenured journalists are reporting on how many times Sorenko has withdrawn or retired from a match and just tweeting about it randomly, I think you're in cool waters.
Yeah. Now there's a debate over the most beautiful man on the ATP tour. Going on in the comments. I do not feel comfortable commenting on that. Let's move on. I think rather than doing the order, I think we need to talk about probably the match of the day in terms of. I would say it was a really, really good match. It was a 5-set match between Alejandro Davidovich-Fokina and Holger Rune. Davidovich-Fokina was 2 points away from pulling off the upset. He was leading at the tiebreak 8-5 in the decider. He unfortunately allowed Holger Rune back in and then played an inexplicable tactical underarm serve and volley at 8-all.
Unspectacular. Just super unspectacular.
It really wasn't good enough. It was almost up there with Medvedev's underarm serve match point down against Tsitsipas, the French, a couple of years ago.
Forgot about that. That was awful. That one was worse. Now that I remember it, it was
was worse. But yeah, it was a good match because Fokina was getting his return into play a lot, and Rune was putting under pressure on serve too, but Fokina was just doing a little bit better at holding on. And I think they're both great movers and shot makers, and it made for a very spectacular viewing. But it was the Fokina return of serve that was giving him the advantage at first. And yeah, I think he's going to be frustrated and close that one out, to be honest. We could have had our first big upset on the men's side.
Yeah, I think that's a running theme with ADF, as his fan calls him, or as Matthew calls him in the comments. I don't know if, he has heart, he has grit, he has all of those things, but I also think he's, in a little bit of a weird way, too aware. He's too aware of the moment. He would have been too aware of what was going on if he beat the number 6 seed at Wimbledon, and all of that kind of just showed across his face and his decision making in the match. So, yeah, I always expect him to get basically I said all of this to say this. I always expect him to test big players, but never actually get the job done. I feel like he's comfortably in that position as a professional tennis player, which is not the best position to be in, but at least it garners you some respect from your peers.
As you're asking if ADF fell during this match, I don't know. He probably did. I'd have to check the Twitter account for
There's
it.
There's an 80% chance he did playing Rune.
What I will say is, very impressively, he actually almost fell a few times and stopped himself. He actually kept his balance, which is impressive. He
must have ran out of ointment to cover his wounds.
But yeah, I think you're right. ADF maybe gets a bit too aware of the moment, gets a bit too tight. But he's closed out some big results. He beat Casper Ruud at the French a couple of years back. He beat Djokovic in Monte Carlo last year. He does have a few examples of closing things out. What?
I don't know. Him beating Casper Ruud before Casper Ruud was ever a Grand Slam finalist was just funny to me. Because I'm like, oh, okay, that's a good win, I guess.
Yeah. Well, regardless, I think Rune's going to be very pleased he got through that. I'm wondering how well he's going to recover physically, because we know how he is. This is probably now he runs the risk of running out of gas a little bit for his next match, which we don't know who it's going to be yet, because it's either Tiafoe or Dimitrov.
I really hope Tiafoe puts together a better performance in that match in part 2. I really hope he does. Fingers crossed. If anyone can agree or has watched the first 2 sets of that match and had high expectations, I feel like they will understand how disappointed I am.
Okay. If he gets a tennis IQ together, he could be dangerous. I think Davidovich does have a decent tennis IQ, just fails him at critical points. Which I can kind of relate to be honest. If it had worked, it would have been legendary. Yeah, high risk, but yeah.
High risk, low reward. I mean, it just depends on how the whole thing works out. Because if he makes it, it's high risk, high reward, which is him winning the match. So yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Michael predicting that Rune's going to cramp. I don't know if that's going to be exactly what happens, but I do share his concerns about Rune's fitness.
Well, he's not going to play tomorrow, so He has a day off.
He does, but do you remember how he was after he played Cerundolo at the French and then had to play Ruud in the quarters?
It took him a little while to warm up. Yeah.
He still had a day off there. Maybe this match will be less physical because obviously grass versus clay, but it was still a long one, and there were a lot of rallies. It was 4 hours. I think this is a good opportunity for the winner of Dimitrov or Tiafoe. If Dimitrov wins it and he does it in straights, then he's going to feel fairly fresh. If Tiafoe comes back and wins it, that swings it back a little bit more towards Rune. But I also think Tiafoe's the kind of guy who, if he's on and he's motivated, can exploit any signs of tiredness in Rune.
I agree.
Yeah. I haven't seen anything about Holger dealing with back issues, to be honest, so I can't comment. But yeah, mixing it up. Yeah, I think Davidovich Fokina's got a lot of fans, not least for the fact he set up a dog shelter in Spain, which just won over a lot of people.
Yeah.
Actually, Matthew, let's raises the other 5-set match that happened. Lehechka beating Tommy Paul and staving off a comeback in what was a match. It was a match that featured some absolutely monstrous hitting from both players. I did feel like Lehechka had the edge. Like Paul deservedly took it to 5, but I think that score kind of reflects how I thought it was going. Is that I think Paul's lapse was more likely to have lapses, and Lehechka was hitting through him a little more than vice versa.
He has such a heavy and sharp ball, doesn't he, Lehechka?
Yeah.
Like, there's just something very. I've never seen somebody. Maybe I don't know if it's the way he produces his ground strokes. I think his serve is very interesting to watch and kind of watch him repeat it. But there's just something. I feel like if I saw him in person, there's a certain sound I would hear. I don't necessarily hear it on the television, but in person it would just sound so heavy. And yeah, he pushed Paul around up until it was time to close out. And I think Paul obviously benefited from the first rain delay. I think that just happens sometimes when you are losing to somebody and you get a chance like a whole hour or so to like recalibrate things. That kind of puts it in direct comparison to what your opponent who's actually leading may think, because they may come out and try not to do anything different from what's got them in that winning position, whereas the opponent who they were beating handedly can be like, oh, this wasn't working at all, let me try something different. I feel like that's what Paul did. He brought a different energy to the match, but eventually Lehechka's weight of shot just kind of won out.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would agree with that. Yeah, and I think I've seen comparisons between Lehechka and Thomas Berdych. This is the first time I've really had an opportunity to really see Lehechka play. I can see an influence, but I would agree with you that he's a little sharper with some of his shots.
Yeah, I can see the influence. That's a great way to put it. But
Berdych is his coach.
Yeah, he's in the coaching box. I don't know if he's officially the coach, but I guess if he's traveling around the world with him, he's part of the coaching team. But yeah, I see the influence. I don't see like a direct carbon copy of Thomas Berdych though, but I see the influence.
Yeah. So yeah, Lehechka through. Obviously, he's playing Medvedev next. And then let's talk about Tsitsipas beating Jarry in straight sets 6-4, 7-6, 6-4. Jarry put up a hell of a fight. Like, that was not a straightforward straight sets win, particularly in the second set. Jarry was a breakup and had points for a double break in that set. So credit to Tsitsipas for pulling off that comeback, because that could have been a lot longer, which is probably not what he wanted after playing 2 5-set matches against Grand Slam champions. I would say that I would say that yes, Tsitsipas is going to be relieved. It was straight sets, but it was more complicated than it needed to be for Steph.
I feel like that's his MO to a certain degree. Kind of the same vein with Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. Like, I always expect matches of Tsitsipas almost, I don't want to say regardless of who he's playing, but almost regardless of who he's playing and where they're ranked. I expect there to be moments of tension where there didn't really need to be in Stefano Tsitsipas matches. He kind of just, to use the age-old tennis term, goes walkabout. And sometimes he starts matches out like that. Sometimes he goes walkabout in the middle of matches. And it doesn't help now that there's a huge Paula Badosa size thing kind of following him around with the same initials of Paula Badosa.
It's a little cruel.
I mean, no, not to call her a thing, but like it is a looming thing in both of their tennis lives. Like,
Okay.
oh, what's Sissy Dosa's doing? You know, not in a bad way. Even though it's kind of cringe from my perspective, they can love who they want to love.
I would completely agree that it's it's not
overwhelming.
something that I would do.
Yeah.
In terms of like how much content gets produced, I still don't understand how they come up with all of it.
Bingo.
But sorry, Matthew, what was your question again? I've forgotten what it was.
Sorry, Matthew.
Yeah, I think I put it on the screen. I think we kind of we were trying to do it was whether Lehechka would be as fatigued if he played a continuous 4-hour match. Probably not. I think that break probably helped.
Actually, I think the break helps from a physical standpoint, but I feel like sometimes having to still be in match mode but not actually be on a match court can be taxing mentally. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
I think it's more to do with the recovery from it for the next match.
Okay, gotcha.
Which against Medvedev, that's going to be tough physically.
Can see that as well.
Yeah, but Medvedev. But Tsitsipas. 2-hour man. He'll take that, but that could have easily gone 4 sets. And I don't know if he goes as walkabout quite as often as you've said, but I do agree sometimes it happens. I can think of a couple of matches here, but I don't think it happens super often. I am curious to see how Sinner does. Not Sinner. Tsitsipas. Good grief! You can tell me when I'm tired. Tsitsipas does against Eubanks.
Is that all the men's matches?
Yes. Apart from the Eubanks result, which I think we talked the Eubanks beating O'Connell in 3 tiebreaks, which I think a lot of people are very pleased about. I didn't really catch much of that one other than just to catch a couple of points. I thought I caught the second set tiebreak, which I thought Eubanks handled very, very well because O'Connell was looking dangerous. But that serve and that backhand was what was standing out to me from Eubanks, making the one-hander very effective. I think he's going to cause Tsitsipas some real problems when they play.
We'll see, because he said some remarks earlier, after the match, rather, about how he's tired in his own way because he played back-to-back too. So I was extremely proud, and the match, not to be disrespectful, and I hope it doesn't come across disrespectful, but the last time that he played Chris O'Connell was on the ATP Challenger level. I forgot where, but it was a Challenger match. And watching them play just felt like an extended Challenger match because they felt comfortable with each other and almost felt like, hey, buddy, we can hold serve fairly easily. Let's just get to a tiebreak 3 times in a row and see what happens. And that's what happened. And I feel like in the tiebreak, Eubanks specifically flexed his newfound level of confidence, his ability to hit over that backhand, especially on return, and have it do major damage. And in general, it just feels nice to see Chris Eubanks have a moment in the sun at probably the most advantageous tournament of the 4 majors for him to have that, because he's such a big server and has weapons, Yeah. So it's exciting. I'm happy for him. He deserves it.
Yeah, for sure. And Matthew, again, kind of echoing it, like super clutch in those tie breaks. Anastasia, I did actually catch some of his backhands down the line and cross court. They were super impressive. It shows that you can make a one-handed backhand work really, really well, especially on grass.
And being 6'6" helps, so it doesn't jump up too high on you.
Yeah. So and he's just not dropping the intensity, and he's now on a 8 match winning streak on grass, which is fantastic. So I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how he does. I think he takes at least a set against Tsitsipas.
It's
at
definitely
least,
possible.
and that's
Definitely possible.
being pessimistic. All right, that's the men. Anastasia saying she wants to hear Eubanks analysing his own game on Tennis Channel. I think that'd be somewhat cruel.
I don't know. Tennis Channel has interesting programming, so I feel like they could very well play that match again and have him call it. So,
yeah. All right. So as I said, we got 7 out of 8 women's matches done. The only one that didn't even get started was Potapova versus Andreeva. So that's going to be the second on court 3 tomorrow. So yeah, that's unfortunate, but rain does rain things sometimes. I guess let's start with the only women's match of the day that was that went to a decider, and that was Jabeur versus Andreescu. Which
that was the match of the day on the women's side.
Yeah, on centre court, which was an absolute scrap, which we kind of expected. Both players like to mix up the pace, like to put balls in awkward places for the opponent. Andreescu seems to enjoy drawing matches out into fights for some reason, and Jabeur gets nervous and makes matches into fights that probably shouldn't be sometimes. So it ended up probably being a little bit tight. Hi, John in the pub.
That match had 3 sets written all over it, like just 3 sets, big bold font across the forehead.
I think it was interesting. I think Jabeur didn't quite get her return firing. Maybe she was trying to read Andreescu's serve in the first set. Second set, I think Jabeur kind of righted the ship and raised her level. And then the third set really could have gone either way because Andreescu was leading 4-3 on serve, and Jabeur won 3 games in a row and was very efficient on her service games. And it was just one lapse from Andreescu nearer the end that kind of cost her, but they exchanged breaks earlier in the set. It was a competitive match. How much did you enjoy it?
A lot. I knew I would. And I like when that actually happens, when I feel like I'm going to enjoy a match and they actually live up to the hype of it. I enjoy Bianca matches when I don't feel like I'm excited for her to begin this glorious comeback to 2019 form. And I feel like I've finally separated myself from expecting that to happen and just watching the good tennis that she can produce. And then Ons Jabeur, she's one of my favorite players to watch, specifically on grass, because of how much she has in her tool belt. And all of that combined with 2 players that have pretty extensive tool belts, it was a fun match. And I kind of wish it would have went a little bit longer. I feel like a women's match that gives me like 5-all in the third set is one of my favorite things. And I was looking forward to that. But it still was full of tension and ups and downs, which, I mean, both of those players have pretty much made their career out of those type of matches. So
that is true. I'm a little surprised that this is how Andreescu played, because I caught her second round match against Kalinina, and there was points in that match where Andreescu was hitting the ball like in a way that we haven't seen from her in a while, probably not since she won that US Open. Not something that she's produced very often anyway. And maybe she didn't think it would work against Jabeur. Maybe she wasn't feeling confident enough to try it. But I thought that was interesting that she kind of reined in the pace a little bit more. So yeah, I don't know. I think Andreescu is in an interesting place right now where I'm starting to think I'm starting to remember how she won a US Open, because that 2019 season for her, when she was fit, she was unbeatable, and I'm trying to work out why.
I think it's her mixture of offense, defense, and variety. Like, she's not necessarily, which is so cliche to be like, oh, she's good at everything, or she's better than average at everything. But I really do think that's the getcha in her game. She's better than average when she's playing well at a really good level. She's better than average at everything. And then the things that the rest of the tour is kind of average at, which is like I call them in like the dink variety, and
Yeah.
roll with me. Like she just is able to make a point, be open and very cat and mouse almost out of nowhere. And a lot of the other people on the tour are not kind of built for that level of tennis and that level of anticipation and kind of like using the tennis court as your playground. And she also has power behind it, and I love watching that. So yeah, I think that's why 2019 was what it was, because she was free to do all of those things without injury when she didn't have it, and then without pressure. And now she's been able to go through both of those in her career, and we're seeing her balance it all. Sometimes I feel like because she's gone through so much in her career, I forget how young she is, but she's also not even 23 years old yet. So
no, you're right. I keep forgetting that as well. So it will be interesting to see how she does. If she's building confidence, watch out, because Bianca Andreescu at the US Open is a proven explosive combination, and I'm here for it. Okay, so if we're kind of done there, I'm happy to move on to the other centre court match, which was pretty straightforward. It's safe to say for Aryna Rybakina, 6-1, 6-1. Just Bolter could not cope with the power and placement that Rybakina was producing, and I have to say this, and not just because she's my title pick, Rybakina looks very, very good now. And I'm feeling a bit more confident about her.
She looks unbothered, which I feel like is when she's playing her best tennis. Unbothered and healthy, and like shooting lasers off of her racket and really not shooting lasers off of her racket in every which direction, from serve, backhand, forehand, and looking like it didn't even matter to her. I think when she's playing like that, there are very few people that can hang with her on grass. And the more she keeps showcasing tennis like that, the more everyone's going to be like, oh, I have to really step it up against her. And sometimes when you feel like you have to play out of your shell sometimes against somebody, the exact opposite happens. So because you feel that pressure to play better or play bigger than yourself. So yeah, it was an uneventful match, but kind of a statement like, hey, let's not forget that I won here last year, kind of victory, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know whether she see it like that, but I think everyone else will see it like that. The only other player who is probably likely to challenge her, there's a couple of others out there, but we'll get to them.
Why don't we go to who?
Sabalenka.
I was going to say who Jabeur is actually playing next, which was a good.
Well, yeah, we'll get there. Yeah. I think let's go to we'll go to that match afterwards, but I want to go to Sabalenka because I feel like we were talking about Rybakina and who can actually stop her, and Sabalenka's the obvious candidate. Straight sets win, a little bit more routine than her previous match, and she definitely was overpowering Blinkova for a couple of those for pretty much most of the match. There was just a couple of loose service games in there that makes me think there's a couple of cracks that could be exploited in Sabalenka's armor. But overall, a very good win, and still put it away.
That's kind of how I think about Sabalenka. I feel like she's been able to just have glue at the ready for her game. I feel like she's a player in general that shows where the cracks are in her game, but she's able to kind of hide it or just simply put it back together long enough to close out matches and go to the net as the winner. I feel like that's what that was, you know.
Yeah.
Aggressive when she needed to be, overwhelming when there were moments where she was shaky. She, you know, tightened up as soon as she needed to.
I think if we do get a Rybakina Sabalenka semi-final, which there are players in the draw that can definitely stop that from happening.
But I want that.
I want that too. I think Rybakina is going to exploit that.
Yeah.
When it happens. That's how I see it happening. But we could preview that match if it happens a little bit more. But that's my thoughts. We'll go to the number 2 court, Petra Kvitova. Straight sets. Not comfortable straight sets. She had a couple of opportunities to put the match. She served for the match at 5-3 5-3, I think. No, it would have been 5-4. But yeah, she set for the match and then got broken by Stevanovic, and then had to take. It took her 3 match points and several deuces to break through at 7-5. Stevanovic defensively was able to keep up with what Petra threw at her, but Kvitova still had quite a lot. And
I think I know why that match was kind of more of like a mental outside of the rain. I think. Do you? I guess I'll pose this question back at you. Do you think Kvitova knows that people talk about the struggles she's had at Wimbledon ever since winning? Do you think she keeps up with how that conversation has been going over the years?
I think if she's smart, no. Although I would be surprised if she couldn't avoid it, because journalists have probably asked her about it. I think she's aware of it, though, because if I was a 2-time Wimbledon champion, I would be really frustrated that I've only made the 4th round once since winning the last time I won it. And I think even if she wasn't seeing the conversation, she wants to prove that she's still a force at Wimbledon. And
I feel like all of that came to the surface when she was trying to close the match out. Yeah. I feel like sometimes I shouldn't say sometimes I don't give enough credit for like what is actually going through some of these players' minds in moments like that. And even though she's been to 4th rounds and beyond of major several times, at this particular juncture with the age she has now and the wisdom, I'm sure she's thinking there's not, 10 more Wimbledons in front of me. She probably was thinking about it like, oh, this is me getting to the 4th round since in almost a decade almost. So yeah, I'm pretty sure she was kind of thinking about it, and her reaction after winning it gave me an inkling that she was thinking about it.
Yeah,
it meant something to her, which was nice to see.
It is nice to see, and she's one of currently 3 players who are unbeaten on grass this year. The other one of them didn't play today, but is playing tomorrow. But we'll get to the 3rd one in a minute.
Are you sure?
Unbeaten on grass this year.
I thought there was 3 people and all 3 of them played today.
No, the other one's Swiatek.
Oh, well, that makes 4 then, because Keys is unbeaten.
Kvitova.
Oh, I don't know why I put Ons Jabeur in there. It's not Ons Jabeur. Sorry.
No.
I mixed up Ons Jabeur's grass winning rate. I think she has the most wins on grass since 21. And I looked at the graphic and somehow slid Ons Jabeur in there. Sorry. Maybe it's an omen for her winning the trophy.
Maybe it's an omen. But Jabeur and Kvitova are going to have to play first, and they're kind of playing for the status of 4th favorite behind the big 3. What I think that's going to come down to who's the least nervous.
Would agree. Agreed.
If both of them are not nervous, if both of them bring it, who do you think wins it?
If both of them bring it on a grass court, I give it an edge to Kvitova, because one Kvitova has beaten Jabeur at Wimbledon before, 1st round in 2019, and the last time they played a 3-setter where Kvitova gave Ons a bagel in the 3rd set. So if that goes long and Kvitova just kind of does her normal rangy thing where she either takes the racket out of your hand or just hits an error, sometimes that can play on Ons' mind of like what to do. So if all of that is happening and Kvitova has the stamina on the day, I think she wins that one.
Yeah. And I would agree with that assessment, to be honest. So that'll be entertaining. We've got a couple of other options here. I think, given we've mentioned her, Madison Keys, very straightforward win against Marta Kostyuk. Didn't watch that match. To be honest with you, I'm not surprised by the result. I figured Keys was going to be efficient, and I did think Kostyuk was going to run out of steam. Did you watch it? Can you enlighten me?
I knew not to watch that match, but I did think that I knew and kind of bet that Keys was going to win. Not money, but I bet that Keys was going to win that match. And she makes me nervous, especially now that she is on like a 8-match win streak herself.
Yeah.
She makes me nervous to think that like this could be the the middle of something special for her in her career at Wimbledon, but I gotta take it one match at a time. So that makes me almost way too nervous to watch her matches because there's so much range in what you're gonna get from her matches. Either you're gonna get something like a 6-4, 6-1 performance where she's playing within herself and also just untouchable as far as pace and power, or you're gonna get something where she's a little all over the place. So
yeah, and that's the
fingers
thing
crossed.
with Keys, but she is looking very good.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if you've been on the show when I've shared this stat before, but if Keys won Wimbledon, she'd be the first woman in 25 years to do the Eastbourne Wimbledon double.
Go Madison Keys.
And
I think she could disrupt that Elena Rybakina and Sabalenka semifinal, couldn't she? I think she can.
Yeah.
Would it be a quarterfinal against Sabalenka?
The winner of either Potapova or Andreeva, and to be honest, I see her winning that match, whoever she plays.
Yeah.
Unless she self-destructs, and then it would be potentially Sabalenka in the quarterfinals, but maybe depends on how Sabalenka does against her fourth round opponent, who we'll get to. Maybe, and talk a bit more in detail about that. But yeah, Keys is a threat. I mean, at the beginning of the stream before you joined, I said there's 5 women who are like the lead favorites from who's left to win it. And in the order I put it, for most to least likely, would be Rybakina, Sabalenka, Kvitova, Swiatek, Jabeur.
Okay.
With Keys as a dark horse 6th.
Yeah. I may switch Jabeur and Kvitova, but I'm with you on that one.
Yeah. Jabeur, because her grass season, like her Wimbledon results have been really, really good.
Yeah.
But the rest of her grass season hasn't. Kvitova is on that streak. And I'm slightly more confident in her putting something together than, say, Keys, because we know what Keys' record is. But hey, I think Madison Keys is an absolutely lovely person. And if she wins Wimbledon, I would actually be really, really happy.
Fingers crossed, maybe.
Not least because she's bested with Laura Robson, who is a former favourite player of mine.
And a lefty. We like lefties.
Yes. Well, yeah, that's true. Actually, no, I enjoy watching Leylah Fernandez. So, yeah. Let's talk about someone who's been mentioned in the chat. Beatrice Haddad-Maia beating Sorana Castella, just fending off everything Castella threw at her. Did drop serve once, but beyond that, that was a statement win from Haddad-Maia.
Yeah. I didn't watch much of it, but by the score, it's definitely a statement. And then I think Castella may have been a little undercooked because maybe I shouldn't say undercooked, maybe just overcooked actually, because she did play a 3-setter against Ostapenko in the match before that. So maybe Castella didn't have all of her wits about her and was a little bit tired. But that also plays into Haddad-Maia's strength. Haddad-Maia seems like she's strong enough to go out there for 4 hours and enjoys the whole process if she needs to. So yeah, that's good for her. That's back-to-back 4th rounds of a major.
Yeah, which you haven't not made a 4th round before. That's really good. It's very odd that she had a great grass court season last year and then went out in the 1st round of Wimbledon and then had a horrific grass court season this year, warm up, and in the 4th round.
Yeah, tennis is tricky like that.
But yeah, she's on form. Maybe she's hoping for a top 10 spot again. She's going to have to get through Rybakina in her next round. And I could see her frustrating Rybakina, but I feel like Rybakina's going to have a little bit too much for her when it comes to it.
If Rybakina's playing well, she wins that match. When I made my fantasy draw, I had Haddad-Maia upsetting Rybakina just for the pure chaos of it all. But I do think if Rybakina brings the level that she's shown for the most part for the first 3 rounds, and she's sharp, and Haddad-Maia does what she does best, I think at their best, Rybakina wins that match.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. Yeah, by all means, Haddad-Maia is the kind of player who could pull off that upset.
Yes, she can make it difficult. Yeah.
Yeah, really draw those rallies out, make it a battle. And then the final match of the day was actually the first match to be completed, which is ironic given this person's history with Grand Slam 3rd rounds. But in Katerina Alexandrova finally made it through in what ended up being quite a straightforward win. Bagel first set.
After just doing a match tiebreak to end the third set against Madison Bringle
Of all
just
people.
the day before. Yeah. I don't really know much about Delma Golfi's game, unfortunately, but I do know Alexandrova is overdue for a fourth round of a slam, and
well overdue.
Her game is kind of catered to it. Even though every time I hear her speak, she always mentions that this surface isn't my favorite. So I wonder which surface actually is her favorite. And I'm imagining it's hard court, because I've heard her say in interviews that clay court and grass aren't her favorite. So it only leaves one unless she just loves carpet tennis. And that's really abstract. So yeah, good for her.
Very good grass court season as well, with winning Rosmalen.
I thought she won Nottingham. Sorry.
Won it and then winning, and then semi-finals in Berlin.
Yeah,
very good results for her, and I'm not surprised that she got this far. She has Sabalenka next. Could she pull off the upset?
She could. I'm not calling it per se, but she definitely could.
Yeah, on the same page. She could. But I'm not calling it.
Only thing is about Alexandrova, when I mentioned about Sabalenka having natural cracks in her game, but having the glue ready to kind of patch them up mid-match, if Alexandrova isn't really steady enough while Sabalenka's having those patchy moments, it's not going to work. So Alexandrova has to be solid if Sabalenka provides her like a real scratchy and, cracks and chinks in the armor kind of moment.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that if either of them is going to crack, it's going to be Alexandrova, especially given she's probably going to be nervous given how far she's got. This is the furthest she's got in a major before. I'm not going to be facetious and say it's the biggest match of her career. That was probably the Madrid semi-final last year, I think. It was either last year or the year before.
It was last year.
It was last year. But it's a significant moment, and she's going to be playing Sabalenka. I could see her being quite nervous for it, at least for the first set.
And it's probably going to be on a show court, like at least center court or court number one. So.
Oh, for sure. Especially judging by how the order of play for tomorrow's gone, which... Should we have a look at that?
Yes, let's do it.
Let's have a look. Okay, let's get it up. So, order of play for tomorrow on center court. We are starting with Andrei Rublev against Alexander Bublik, a rematch of the Halle final.
Oh, you know what? Maybe that's why they put that on center court. Because at first glance, I was like, why is that on center court? Not that it deserves, the smallest court, but I was like, why is that on center? But yes, a rematch of Halle makes sense. Tough it out, boys.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be massively entertaining, which is why I think they've put it on. Obviously, Rublev has a crowd draw for how intense his game is. And then Bublik has the crowd draw for just how his variety and craziness on court. He's kind of a more extreme version of Medvedev, with maybe a slightly more likable personality than Kyrgios. So more kind of Medvedev, but more
Medvedev.
Medvedev.
He's like Medvedev. There we go.
Yes,
Alexander Medvedev.
Great job. Just a quick comment on the chat. Ghosty's asking if the conversation between John and his dad could be Titanic the ship or the movie. There is also a beer called Titanic in the UK, although that's mainly sold where I am because the brewery's local.
Oh, that sounds like is it dark or light beer?
It's lots. It's more of an ale.
Oh, I love ales.
Yeah.
Ales are the light ones, right?
No, they're the heavier stuff.
Oh, wait. Maybe I like pale ales. Maybe that's what I like.
Pale ale is different. Yeah. I mean, they do like pale ales, but that's what I was saying is that they may have found a pub that does Titanic the beer.
Cheers.
And plugging my local brewery. So John can confirm if he so wishes. But yeah, Rublev Bublik, I think that's going to be fun. I think they went 3 sets in that Halle final.
They did, yeah.
If they go again, splitting 3 sets, then I could see that going 5.
Yeah, beat each other up.
Yeah, yeah. Do it. Fight. Tell you what, centre court crowd are in for a treat because match number 2 is Swiatek Bencic.
Has potential in it a little bit.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Miles. If you need a beer right now, I'm clearly stressing you out.
No, not in that way. Sometimes I just want a beer, and this is one of those moments. I feel like me, John, and you would have a great moment at a pub having a beer.
Maybe one day when you get to the UK. Yeah, I agree. Swiatek Bencic has some potential, especially given the last time they played in a Grand Slam. I think the last time they played was at the United Cup, and Swiatek answered to everything Bencic threw at her. And I feel like the Bencic who beat her at the US Open 2 years ago, as you know, the Swiatek who lost to Bencic 2 years ago at the US Open is not the same Swiatek that we have now. We were getting there. It was the prototype. It was the proto version. But I think Swiatek still wins it, but I think Bencic is going to make her life difficult, at least for a set.
That's what I want to see, actually. I think Martic did some of that in Swiatek's prior round, just not well enough. And I think Bencic could.
You could argue there might be the best preparation for Swiatek to deal with Bencic.
Yeah, I don't remember the last. Well, I shouldn't say that. I was going to say I don't remember the last time Swiatek dropped a set, but she dropped a set in the Roland Garros final.
Yes,
and against Tatiana Maria at Bad Homburg. So yeah, maybe sometimes I feel like with Swiatek she isn't battle tested because there's this aura around her that she's just capable of steamrolling people 6-love, 6-1. But actually, over the past couple of weeks, she's been battle tested. So yeah, that makes it a interesting wrinkle in that match. And now I'm interested to, like, more than I probably was before, to see how it plays out. And I want Bencic to kind of be ready for that match. So we'll see.
Yeah. And we know Bencic has got some grass court pedigree. She's been to the Berlin final twice. Lost to Sam Sonderland and then Jabeur. So maybe
I am with Ghosty though. I would have preferred to see Collins versus Swiatek if I had it my way.
As an eager fan, I would have been more scared of Collins. For sure. On grass, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I would be scared too. Not that I don't want Iga to lose, but I think it's nice to see her get tested. That's for sure.
Okay, as being as neutral as I can, given obviously a lot of the big players are in the other half of the draw, you're Rebecca, Sabalenka, Kvitova, even Jabeur and Keys. Whoever, and one of those 5 is probably going to get to the final. Maybe, some people might say Haddad Meyer. Is Swiatek the best person from the top half of the draw to make that an interesting final?
I think if I look at the other people in the top half of the draw, I know Svitolina's in there as Aryna because they play each other.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Then Pegula's
in there. Vondrousova, Bushkova, and then Bencic. Yeah. So those are your options.
Yeah, it's Swiatek as far as who's going to create the best final and give the semifinal and just the final weekend of the tournament real prestige. It's Swiatek. It is.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only other person who might make it interesting would be Azarenka, maybe.
Yeah, but she's never made a Wimbledon final. Made
semifinals, and I think the only reason she didn't was because she lost to the champion both times.
She did. She lost to Kvitova in 2011 and Serena in 2012. Yeah, that would be interesting. Like, okay, here we go again with the the moms aren't done yet kind of thing, and Azarenka isn't done either. But yeah, as far as potential for high quality semifinal and final, it's Swiatek.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until just now, actually.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking about. So I know I'm not exactly neutral in this. I'm pretty open about who my favorites are. But I think when you look at the caliber, well, not the caliber, because that's insulting to Azarenka is a 2-time slam champion, Bencic is an Olympic champion, and Svitolina is a 2-time Grand Slam semi-finalist. But it's more to do with who's gonna be the biggest challenge to whoever comes to the bottom half of the draw, and it's Swiatek. Now Garcia's out, and Vekic.
Yeah, I think Pegula has a really good shot in that top half to make a semifinal for the first time.
She really does, actually. And I feel like I kind of overlooked her a bit when I did my power rankings, because she actually scored pretty highly on my formula. And I went, but it's grass. And she doesn't have a great grass record. But yeah, I think I may have overlooked her a little bit.
When she's one of those players that feels like she has a ceiling. So I can kind of see why you would overlook her at a Grand Slam.
Yeah. I think Wimbledon particularly, like every other major, I probably wouldn't.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense.
But it would make sense with Pegula. Oh, did she hurt her back and pulled out of the mixed doubles?
Anastasia, that's a good call, because I was going to bring that up. But I feel like it's a
precautionary thing.
Yeah, I think, because she also played, unless she tweaked something in her match today, in doubles with Coco. But playing all three is interesting. Like, it's an interesting choice as a top 4 seed to play all three. I know they used to do that way back in the day, but doing that now is a very interesting choice. So, yeah, maybe that's precautionary. Maybe something is going on.
Yeah. All right. Last match on center court, Hurkacz versus Djokovic. So we'll keep this one short. We'll keep this one short. I think Hurkacz might get a set. I think his serve's been on point. I think it'll take Djokovic a while to break it. He's been known to irritate Djokovic before, and he's got a better grass court record than Wawrinka. Is he going to beat Djokovic? Probably not. I think Djokovic would exploit that forehand weakness. Yeah. I think the centre court crowd might see a longish match for that one.
Yeah, I think if Hubie Hurkacz keeps holding his serve and does what he does from the back of the court to try to hang with Djokovic, it could get interesting. But I am fairly certain that Djokovic is going to win that match. So
I'm pretty certain too. Just want to say hi to Corey, who's in the
Corey.
Chat. First time joining us. If you haven't subscribed, then do. We've got a show like this every day. Hopefully we can get some watch-alongs sorted out to cover some matches over Wimbledon in the next week or so. I can confirm, Ashley, that John's voice was in Breakpoint, asking Nick Kyrgios a question in the episode 6, I think.
Sounds like a superstar to me.
Yes. Well, he is the one and only Mr. John Silk. Anastasia thinks it's going to be a 5-setter for Hubie. I mean, it would be a massive upset if that happened, but
yeah, because Djokovic looked ruthless against Wawrinka, so I don't.
I think Djokovic wants that 8th, and he's coming for that 8th, and I think he's a little motivated to bring it because he knows they might get tested a little more than the last couple of years.
Yeah.
By dealing with maybe Alcaraz in the final. All right, court number 1. Speaking of, Jessica Pegula versus Lesia Tsurenko is on court 1. Is that match going to happen, Miles?
No, it's not. Pegula's going to walk her way into the quarterfinals, actually.
Yeah, so maybe injuring her back in the mixed doubles might not be
the world's worst thing. Yeah, because Tsurenko's back is going to hurt worse.
So yeah. Okay. Even if they do play the match, I think Tsurenko is going to be gassed, and I think even with an injury, Pegula is going to have the advantage. But we'll see.
Would agree.
Middle match: Sinner versus Galan. Sinner should walk that, right?
I really hope so. But that match at Roland Garros against Daniel Altmaier seriously hasn't left me. because it was a good quality match, but also because Sinner should have won that match and went on to have a successful French Open. I feel like there's a couple of moments in this season alone that I've wanted him to kind of propel and lift the trophy and be in the final, and he hasn't quite done that. So hopefully he can in Wimbledon. And I feel like grass presents an opportunity. The only thing I'm worried about is his serve, because if his serve is not doing what it needs to do and he's not getting a high first serve percentage in, his second serve is a liability. Not that he doesn't get it in, but it's attackable. So
yeah, I guess it depends on what Galan can do.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't seem like he has the weaponry, but I mean,
but he bageled Tsitsipas at the US Open. But I wonder how much of that was to do with Tsitsipas playing badly.
That was the walkabout Tsitsipas.
Yeah, fair. So I think, I mean, look, let's face it. This is what we English or these soccer fans would call an open goal for Sinner. I don't know if you're very familiar with soccer, but basically, or even hockey.
That means no one's standing there to stop you from putting the ball.
Essentially, yeah. It would probably work in hockey as well. Yeah, it's right there for Sinner. I think the draw, it's an open goal, but you could still trip and fall flat on your face, and you're always.
You mean open to get to a maiden Grand Slam semifinal, right?
Yeah, it would be first Slam semifinal, and an overdue one as well.
Yeah, especially if you're comparing him to Alcaraz, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Altmaier match, Altmaier has a history of bothering Sinner, they have close matches. So when you look back at it, maybe it wasn't that big a surprise, but for that particular player, more than necessarily anything else, I think maybe anyone else Sinner would have won.
Fair enough.
So there's hope there. Final match on court one: Svitolina versus Azarenka, the battle of the comeback moms.
Should be interesting for a lot of different reasons and a lot of different layers, one of which them both being mothers on the tour. And I'm not really sure how to call that one. It's kind of like a 51-49. And if I had to give the 51 to anybody, I think I might give it to Azarenka, because she's been to that one more semifinal than Svitolina has here at Wimbledon. So, and she has a little bit more natural aggression in her game than Svitolina does, and I feel like that just naturally pays out on grass. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes 3 though.
Yeah, I think it probably will go 3. I think they're both going to be. I think it's going to be interesting. I think I don't think Svitolina's had to deal too much physically this tournament, which is going to help her. Azarenka's
she's been pretty efficient the last 2 rounds too.
Yeah, I would agree. That was what I was looking for in here. But I would think that I think Azarenka maybe gets it, but I could also see Svitolina disrupting and irritating her enough to pull it out. That's probably going to be the match I'm finding it hardest to call, and maybe the one I'm going to watch once Swiatek Bencic is done.
I would join you in that one with the Pims.
With the Pims. Oh, yes. Excellent drink. Oh, I should get myself a Pims tomorrow. Number 2 court. Vondrousova versus Bushkova. Battle of the Czechs.
Such an unlikely 4th round, by the way. More so for Vondrousova.
Yes, I would say so.
Because where did the form come from to win 3 matches in a row on grass?
She did all right in Berlin. She got to the quarters or last 16 in Berlin, I think. So
didn't she? Was she the recipient of Jule Niemeyer's retirement, or was that somebody else?
No, that Niemeyer didn't retire.
I could have sworn Niemeyer retired with a wrist injury. She fell.
I don't remember her falling, but it was Galfi who beat Niemeyer.
Okay.
I didn't see the match. I just went, when did Juliana Niemeyer go? And then saw she'd lost to Galfi.
Maybe this was in Eastbourne. Maybe I'm losing it.
Yes, it was that was Eastbourne. Yeah, so it wasn't here. No, Marketa Vondrousova. I will get her results up now. So yeah, her path through. Vondrousova beat Peyton Stearns, Veronika Kudermetova, and Donna Vekic.
2 of those 3 wins are amazing. So yeah, she deserves a spot in the 4th round.
Yeah,
and Bushkova took out the number 5 seed in Garcia again at Wimbledon.
Yeah. And then Vondrousova in Berlin, she beat Andreescu, and then she benefited from the Hule Niemeyer retirement in Berlin, and then lost to Sakari.
Okay.
I'm struggling to call that one because obviously Vondrousova is looking very good on grass. So is Bushkova. Like, she's really hitting that ball.
But either one of them are probably going to be the "Hey, hello, remember me?" or "Look at me" kind of semifinalist that happens at Wimbledon. One of them. That's a good chance for one of those.
Semi-finalist. Oh yeah, because the winner of that's going to play. Pagula. Well, probably Pagula.
Yep. The winner of that takes on Pagula and Serenko if Serenko plays the match.
Yeah. Bushkova, she got through. She beat Voltert, Kontaveit, and then Garcia in what was a really, really good match, I thought, that started on court 18 and ended up on court 1.
Yeah.
So I think that could, I think that's going to be a good battle, regardless. You're right. I think either of them have a chance of upsetting Pagula in the quarters and being that random semi-finals, which neither of them have got that far before. So it'd be interesting in a slam. Oh no, Vondrousova's got to the French Open semis. I mean, at Wimbledon. Bushkova, former quarterfinalist here. Then we've got Dimitrov versus Tiafoe to finish. We've talked about that a lot already. And then Roman Safiullin against Denis Shapovalov. That's all going to go down to whether Shapovalov self-destructs or not.
Yeah, unfortunately.
He nearly did against Brody.
Yeah, but he pulled it together. I think he's one of those players that like enjoys a place where he knows he's played well at before. I think that's a trend in tennis, and I feel like he's one of those players. So I expect him to get through that, not without some regular Shapovalov antics or whatever. But I expect him to win that because Safiullin has never been to a Grand Slam quarterfinal. But if he wants to get to one, he probably fancies his chances against Shapovalov. So
yeah, I would agree. This is probably a good chance for Safiullin to show what he can do. Because he did at the ATP Cup a couple of years ago and did all right. So it should be interesting. And then after that, and then the singles match happening is on court 3, Potapova versus Andreeva, which we've mentioned, and that's to finish off round 3. That's our lineups. And then there's a lot of doubles, a lot of juniors happening as well, which I'm not going to necessarily go through all of, but there's definitely looking at the lineup. I think you've got some really, really good options out there, fun options for anyone who wants to get involved. Obviously, I am rooting for Taylor.
Yes, I love that nickname.
Yeah,
Teylah. Go Taylor.
Yes, for sure. Corey, I know you're probably surprised about Shapovalov. I'm not. I had him in my quarterfinals, but he's a very risky pick.
I think I had him in my semis again, actually, just based off of chaos.
You think he's going to beat Sinner and then, or
Why
Sinner's
not?
going to go out early? And
I don't even think I had Sinner going that far, actually.
Yeah, Shapovalov picks up the pieces, ends up in the semi-final against Novak.
Yep.
Unless you decided that Novak lost in round 1.
I think I may have had him losing to Jordan Thompson, actually. Hey, chaos, fantasy.
Bring on the chaos. Miles is here for the chaos. Hey, look, I think the most chaos pick I still remember seeing is when we first started doing the Popcorn League between those of us in the community, and someone picked Ugo Humbert to win the Madrid Masters.
Very bold.
Yeah, I think
did he even make it to the second round?
No, he went out round 1.
Yeah. That was really bold.
Qualifier, and Bear ended up filling that spot. So,
that's funny.
That was a lot of fun. But there you go. That's today sorted. That's tomorrow. Thanks for coming on, Miles. Really appreciate it as always.
Of course.
and I always have a lot of fun presenting these with you. You'll be pleased to know, Talking Tennis viewers, that I have a night off tomorrow. I will not be returning.
We both do.
Yeah, both got a night off. I mean, I've done this 3 straight nights. So at least someone gave you a day off. But I'm pulling overtime here, John. Just saying. I'm just having a look and just seeing who we've got. Yeah, so tomorrow you've got Damien and Vanch doing last ball drops, and then Miles and I are back on Monday.
Yay!
To review all the action from all the 4th round matches that are going to be happening based on today's results. Any particular 4th round clash from the men's or the women's you're looking forward to?
Women's, Kvitova and Jabeur, and then also looking forward to what could be in Bencic and Swiatek. And on the men's side, Berrettini and Alcaraz sounds like so much fun.
We're going to be on late. Well, for me. For you, maybe not.
Yeah, it won't be that late for me.
Anyway, thanks, Tennis Twit. You've been fantastic in the chat. Thank you to everyone who's joined the chat. Ghost, Kirit, Ashley, Max. I'm not going to try and list everyone's names because I'm tired and there's a lot of you. There's 33 people watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do, so you can be notified when the next episode of Last Ball Drops goes live. But you can subscribe and listen back if you can't catch us live, or even catch us in audio form wherever you can get your audio podcasts, Spotify, Apple, wherever. I'm going to leave the last word to Corey, which is the most important thing.
Amen.
Everyone, enjoy the tennis tomorrow. Take care. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.